All right, well, shares of Intel riding a wave of new optimism, a record first quarter for the company. Intel CFO Stacy Smith joining us now to talk about it. Nice to have you in the studio. Thanks for being here. We're always talking to you from afar. But, on the earnings call last week, you talked about the surprise in the first quarter in terms of the strength of new products at Intel. Who's buying what, and why did that surprise you so much?
Well, I think what we've seen is really, we saw the consumer segment of the market starting to come back actually last year. And what we started to see in the first quarter is on top of that, we started to see some signs that enterprise purchasing was happening again in terms of refreshing their client base. Yeah, if I can take you back, one of the big surprises in this downturn was how quickly the consumer segment of the market returned. And I think it really points to how indispensable this technology has become. It's the heart of how people consume content and information and the heart of how they conduct their social networks. And so it behaved very differently in this downturn.
And what have you heard from those business customers that you say are now coming back and coming back in a meaningful way? If you look at the jump in revenue and profit that you had from a year ago, why are they coming back now? What reassurances do they have that the economy is turning, that they can hire more and therefore demand more product?
Well, I think it's really a combination of two things, and I can use Intel as an example. We're spending slightly more in IT this year than we did last year. That's a sign that we're seeing strengthening worldwide economies and that CFOs are giving CIOs a little bit more budget to spend. So I think that's a piece of it. And then I think equally important is we brought out a new product line in the mobile segment of the market, which tends to be what most large enterprises are buying now. They buy notebook computers. And I think that is just an added value proposition now for CIOs that they can go buy some really compelling technology as budgets are improving a bit.
What about pricing when you look at average selling prices? I mean, how's that holding up across the board?
If you look at our Q1 results, that was the piece that was the big surprise, was really the strength of the mix. And we saw a much richer mix in notebooks associated with the new products that we brought out that we expected. And so pricing was a big part of the results that we saw in Q1. And I think it really comes down to where we are in the product cycle.
Well, one of the anecdotes that we hear at Intel is that the folks at the company keep an eye on the shipping lanes out of Taiwan to sort of look at the demand. Can you tell us about that a little bit more? Is that a good indicator?
Well, one of the advantages we have of our market presence is that we're in every market around the world, in the PC segment and in the server segment of the business. And so I think we have pretty good insight into what's happening around the world. And so we look carefully at the inventory pipeline. In some cases, we have better insight than others, but I think across the pipeline, we have pretty good insight. And what we see is that the pipeline looks to be pretty healthy. You've seen several quarters of replenishment, but relative to how we see demand, we see healthy inventory levels out there.
And you've got chips in some of the new Apple products, some of the new MacBooks that came out, but then when you look at some of the other sort of buzzworthy products out there, whether you're talking about the iPad or some of the Droid phones, et cetera, Intel's not playing as much in that arena. Any regrets there?
I think what we're seeing is increasingly devices are becoming more mobile and they're becoming more personal. And I think that you see the iPad being a class of devices like what we saw with the netbook computers, where people are taking smaller devices, using it as a way to consume content off the internet. I think we saw great growth in the netbook segment of the market. You're going to see us well represented across pads and tablets, and increasingly, as our process technology leadership extends, you're going to see us in things like smartphones as well.
Well, on that point of tablets, what kind of bet is Intel making on tablets in their future? Because I think, personally, it's kind of up in the air. People think they're cool, they like them, but will they catch on across the board as, say, the BlackBerry and the iPhone did? What do you think?
The investments that we're making in tablets wouldn't be specific to tablets. In general, what we're doing is we're taking Intel architecture, we're making it smaller, and we're making it more power efficient. That's the category of devices that I think will be compelling in tablets, just as it's the category of devices that'll be compelling in smartphones.
And when you look at where the manpower and a lot of the R&D money is going at Intel, you've got a lot of muscle around the Atom chips. It's all about small and extremely powerful. What's the outlook for that for the company? I mean, is that as profitable, do you think, down the line as some of the classic Intel chips?
Oh, I think it can be. If you look at what is driving the industry right now, it's first that devices are becoming more mobile and more personal. And secondly, those devices are increasingly being used to connect to the internet. And so
what do you need those Atom chips for? I mean, we're talking about tiny here.
Sure. So I think you have this continuum. There will be segments of the market that still want a lot of performance. They want security. They want manageability. Those kinds of features. Right. That's what we saw in Q1 was real strength in the notebook segment of the market. But I think you're going to increasingly see smaller, more power efficient devices that are powered by Atom, that are tablets, that are smartphones, that are things like that. And if we play across that continuum of devices, I think we'll continue to drive growth.